Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. Speedball might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello everybody and welcome back to GTA Fancast on the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. Apologies for the lack of content so far. The simple fact of the matter has been that I haven't had too much time to produce a GTA, and I haven't actually been able to take in every single game this season due to a number of family events that have gotten in the way. But I am back here to talk through a very disappointing 3-0 defeat to Manchester City, which could have been kind of predicted, but the manner of the defeat, I think, is more worth what we should be discussing, really. Conceding the first minute is never a good way to start against a side as talented as they are, and the way the goal was conceded is really quite schoolboy when you think about the way Man City play. And I'll start with that first goal naturally. So, I mean, if you was to write down the first kind of thing to do in terms of stopping Manchester City from getting what they want out of a game, I think you would say stopping Kevin De Bruyne is a big factor in that. And in particular, not allowing him to get into that right-hand channel where you can see on this graphic here, he's ready to kind of feed the ball across the box. That's his bread and butter, his forte. And Jack Grealish duly obliged with the finish. Now, I think part of the issue there is that we've transitioned to the back four system. And if we were to play with a back five, and I'll kind of handily head over to my tactics board, my virtual tactics board now, to kind of explain exactly what I mean here. But you can see that in build-up, City tend to set up in a 2-3-5 kind of shape. You got your two centre-backs, your full-backs tucking in alongside the deepest midfielder. And this five kind of strung along in the front line features your wide forwards, your two kind of number eights, and your central striker as well, obviously in Erling Haaland. You can see here that the situation in which we lost the ball, our midfield was dragged all the way over to the flank. Nunes gave the ball away, and the ball was quickly transitioned over to Kevin De Bruyne in this space here, and he makes a run towards the right flank, overlapping Phil Foden, who was engaged by Ryan Aït-Nouri. And to be honest, we weren't in a terrible situation because Gonzalo Guedes was in here to actually track the run of De Bruyne. But as he made that run, Guedes actually just let him go. Now, there is a scenario here where Ryan Aït-Nouri would actually kind of, once that ball is played, or perhaps anticipating that ball being played, would kind of swap with Guedes, and Guedes would come and engage Foden if he held onto the ball. But neither kind of really happened. And what ended up happening was giving Kevin De Bruyne that free run to actually cross the ball into Jack Grealish. And that back four obviously is spread a little bit thin in the sense that you aren't able to give the defence the opportunity to engage in wide areas as quickly as they used to with a back five. With an extra defender in here, you would have had probably Aït-Nouri right up against Phil Foden once you received that ball. And maybe De Bruyne doesn't actually make that overlap because, he might not have actually got into the space to put the cross into the box. But ultimately, we are kind of going to have to bite the bullet a little bit if we want to be a bit more expansive and play with this new system. And it hasn't let us down really up to this point. I think you can point to the fact that our defensive record has been really, really good so far this season. But, it kind of showed up again in the second goal as well. Again, build up down our right-hand side, their left. And with Nathan Collins dragged out all the way out to the right, Erling Haaland picked up the ball in a channel where essentially he's one-on-one with Max Kilman. Now, I think Kilman does the wrong thing in backing off here. I think Haaland's actually shown he's not the best when it comes to dribbling with the ball at his feet. And engaging Haaland as quickly as possible once he picks up the ball is probably the best way to go about handling him. Then he just backs off, and Haaland doesn't really have to do too much to work a shooting angle. And while he did scuff it, he found the bottom corner because that is what he is all about, naturally. So while us transitioning to the back four has borne a lot of fruit, to be honest. We've got Nathan Collins in there and Max Gilman who are working up a really good partnership. Our fullbacks tend to be pretty good if they've let themselves down a little bit, because they are a little bit more exposed, I think, these days. Overall, it's shown it to be a good decision to move away from that in order to hopefully create a bit more attacking intent and opportunities to score goals. Now, that clearly hasn't come to fruition. We've not really done anything with regards to looking to expand on our goal tallies from the last couple of seasons. And at the moment, with only 3 goals scored so far this year, Neves with 1, Daniel Podence with 2, whilst we have had injuries that have caused us trouble in that regard, it's just not been good enough so far at all. I will obviously caveat the fact that I'm going to talk about our attacking limitations in the context of the City game, in the context of it's Manchester City. They're the best club side in world football, probably, you'd argue, at the moment. And while we shouldn't necessarily be expected to show up and score 2-3 goals against Man City, there are little things you can look to see that we're just making bad decisions in attacking areas. And I'll show up probably the one situation in the first half where we thought, actually, we're not in a bad spot here. Mateus Nunes breaks forward. He plays the ball into Daniel Podence, and he receives the ball on the edge of the box in what is a really kind of promising situation. Guedes is outside him. They're kind of in a 2-on-2, really. Now, what I found here was that Podence was probably a little bit eager to play the pass, and I think the back heel, while it might have been the quickest way to actually transition the ball into Guedes, he could have maybe engaged the defender a little bit more, pulled him into space, and then allowed Guedes to make more of a forward thrust into the space in behind the fullback, just to kind of give him the best opportunity to get a clearer shot at goal. What ended up happening is we played it into Guedes. John Stones is in a relatively comfortable situation, and ultimately Guedes not full of confidence at the moment. Hasn't quite settled into the league yet as well as he might have hoped. Just shifts the ball onto his left. He's shown down that line anyway. Edison has, the goal covered in all the areas you'd expect him to, and he just kind of hits it at his near post. And really kind of the hallmark of a forward who isn't that confident, who isn't looking like he feels like he's likely to score. And I think when you think about the fact that Guedes has joined the club and he's been kind of shown up as an answer to our goal scoring problems potentially. He had a good season last year in La Liga with about 13 goals, I think it was, in the end. If you look at his FBref numbers from last season, he actually doesn't show up brilliantly, just because I think he overperformed his XG to an extent. His average shot distance was 21.3 yards from goal. That's not necessarily the mark of a player who you would expect to get into goal scoring positions a lot and then take advantage of them. He was obviously quite fortunate, perhaps, maybe, or maybe he was just out through a rich vein of form, absolutely on fire in terms of finding the net from distance and things like that. Or he was just having lots and lots of shots. I mean, you're looking at 2.3 per game. He's probably not coming anywhere near that at the moment from a Wolves perspective, but he's not the kind of player I think that you would expect to suddenly switch it on and be like, Wolves are going to be on fire from an attacking perspective this season. And I just want to kind of show up the touch maps of the 3 forwards from the game. Obviously, we were playing with what you call a false 9 in Podence down the middle of the pitch. And there's a lot of kind of, I think, distance between the 3 of them. They're all operating in their spaces. And what you would expect, especially with Neto and Guedes playing on the opposite side to each other, is a little bit more synergy, a little bit more rotation in the forward areas for them to kind of occupy each other's space a little bit more. I think earlier on in the season, we had a look at Neto from the Leeds game, where he was stationed out on the left flank initially, but he was popping up on the right. He was getting into good positions. That's probably still his best game so far this year. And really just nobody was able to kind of take advantage of any of the good positions we got into, because we did. We especially for a 20-minute spell in the second half, and we were breaking the lines in midfield. Nunes was doing well to do that. Johnny was playing well. The midfield was really kind of doing its bit, and I think to a certain extent they have done really for the most part this season, from what I've seen. And the forward players are just really, really letting us down, and they need a bit of a kick up the backside to try and kick them into gear and build up some form. Now, Bruno Lage's future is being speculated about at the moment, and in terms of where I stand on that, it's an interesting situation. I think I think he's not miles off it from a personal viewpoint. I think there are lots of good things we see in possession, especially so far this season, playing out from the back. We're a lot better than we were last year in particular. And also, I just think we're in control of games. On a few occasions, we've actually had spells against every single team we've played where, you just think, we're comfortable here. We're really a technically gifted side. You can see that the level of the players has gone up, I think, except when they get into the final third. It's the hardest part of the football pitch to coach, I think, and I'm assuming they're working on this all the time, but something just isn't quite clicking into gear at the moment. Yes, we're missing strikers. Yes, Bruno's been after a number of players in different profiles and positions that he's not had until this point in his managerial tenure at Wolves. So theoretically, we should be cutting him a little bit more slack, but this is a problem that stretched back to kind of the back end of last season. I personally don't think I want to see him leave at this point. I think he's had a bit of kind of bum luck so far, and while he was working with Nuno's squad last year, he's actually been able to stamp his own authority on the playing group this season. And really, he said himself, I think, that he needs till November to really stamp his authority and philosophy on the players and get them kind of used to working with each other. We haven't got that time to really allow him to settle, unfortunately. Players are brought in late in the window. We missed out on, I would say, 3 fixtures early doors, which we should be getting 3 points in if we probably had the personnel available to us. I think we would have done, especially the likes of Bournemouth, the Fulham game, and Leeds. Leeds in particular, I think we should have done a hell of a lot more in that game because we looked pretty good in it for the most part. But if you find a manager that is available and ready and you believe would kickstart this group immediately, because I think some of it's psychological and sometimes I wonder whether the players are fully in tune with what Bruno's actually asking of them, then there's an argument that you make the decision and you know what, you go, okay, shake hands on it, Bruno. You've had your time here. You've not let us down entirely, but there's an opportunity with probably the best group of players we've had in a very, very long time. You're going back until probably league title winning days back in the 50s to wonder if Wolves have actually had the quality of playing staff that it's got at the moment. And that could go to waste if we allow things to kind of just slide over the next few weeks. And yes, we've got 2 weeks without a game now. Potentially international breaks are the time to make these kind of decisions and allow the new manager to get his kind of feet under the desk a little bit. But at the same time, I wouldn't be disappointed to see Bruno taking charge against West Ham, because I think that's a really winnable game again against a team who are struggling. And I think we can match up from a talent perspective for sure. But we'll wait and see. And it's going to be an interesting time as a Wolves fan over the next few weeks to see how we get on with that.